Time to light the match for the burning truth with Casey Hendrickson.
I'm not so sure this is how it works. I'm not. Okay, that's a good suggestion. All right, somebody on the live stream is like, every Haitian story needs to be introed by Voodoo from Godsmack. I'm not opposed to that.
I am also not opposed to that. That's a pretty good idea.
That seems fair, right? I used to do that a lot more in the olden days, back before I had people who would delete my B-bar and make all of my sounds go away. Yes, we're going to rebuild that. But I used to have, like, every time I would talk about a hybrid, back when hybrids were the thing, right? Hybrids are the next great thing. Now, of course, it's like, hybrids aren't good enough. We need to go EV. But I would play the South Park hybrid song.
That's a good one, too.
So I used to do that with a bunch of different, like, topics. I just haven't done it in a couple of years. So it's...
For the thanks.
Right. Thanks. It was such a good song. I mean, it's a terrible song, but it's a good song. But Chris Murphy. Now, Chris Murphy is genuinely one of the dumbest people in Congress. The dude he has no shame, pathological liar. You know, there are those who just kind of like lie for politics and stuff like that. And then there's just people who just lie for the sake of it. So if you have a politician who will go online and lie about a bill or lie about something that's happening because they're trying to, steer the narrative or whatever, that's just politicians being sucky politicians. But then you got people like Chris Murphy who randomly, like at 2:13 on a Tuesday, will just butt vomit a lie that has nothing to do with anything that's happening right now all over the internet. And everybody is like, what is this guy talking about? And the rest of the Democratic Party is like, I don't know. He just came out of the bathroom. He's rubbing his nose. We think he did a bump. The guy's something weird. Something wrong with his medulla oblongata, okay? He's ornery. So Chris Murphy decided that in the Intelligencer, Chris Murphy wants Democrats to break up with neoliberalism. The Democratic senator speaks out about the future of his party. Chris Murphy would have no future in his party if he lived almost anywhere else in the country. So he's fighting neoliberalism. So that's another term I need to learn now, apparently. He wants to get a bunch of Democrats in a room with blue-collar workers. All right, so Democrats need to reconnect with blue-collar workers, right? They've lost blue-collar workers. For the record, folks, the Democratic Party was never for the blue collar while the Republicans were for the rich people. That was never the case. Were there elements in each party that did that? Sure. But let's not forget, the Democratic Party, who tells you that they're the party of the working man, thinks that the vast majority of working men in the country are flyovers who don't deserve a say. Never forget that. They will attack you for shopping at Walmart. They will attack you for being trailer trash. They will attack you for not having a college degree. They'll make fun of it, everything that you do. They are not at all interested in you. And that has been the Democratic Party's stance for as long as I have at least been an adult, if not my entire life. But maybe Chris Murphy finally has figured something out. He is a horrendously dumb human being, but maybe he's figured this out. Democrats are not doing well with blue-collar workers right now. Republicans are. So we need to get blue-collar workers into the room with Democrats. Okay. This might just make sense. Except Chris Murphy wants to get a bunch of Democrats in a room with blue-collar workers and convince them that they should join. What do you think they should join, Morgan? What do you think he's going to try and get them to join? Blue-collar workers. What do you think Chris Murphy, Democrat, wants the blue-collar workers to join? What do you think? What do you think?
A union?
A union? See, that would be the sane thing. Now, I want you to not think sane, Morgan. I want you to think insane in the membrane. That's what I want you to think. You're never going to get it. You're never going to get it because it's that crazy. So Chris Murphy wants Democrats to get in a room with blue-collar workers and convince them to join GLAAD. 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 Yes, that GLAAD. With the 2 A's, GLAAD. Yeah, that one. I know. I don't, folks. I don't know if we realize how out of touch the Democrats are at the top if they think sitting blue-collar workers down and trying to get them to join the Gay and Lesbian Alliance Against Defamation. I don't think we are fully comprehending how completely out of touch they really are with their own base. So here we go. I don't see a lot of evidence that we are winning those people over by not speaking to them, so I think we've got to put ourselves in rooms with conservative people and talk to them about why gay kids and trans kids are no threat to them. For the record, I don't know a single conservative who thinks that gay kids and trans kids are a threat. Not a single one. Never met one. Not one time. Now, transgender 65-year-olds who want to wear lingerie at a public library to read stories to little children with their legs spread, that's a different ballgame. But also invite them to come into a conversation with us over our mutual agreement on populist economics. Okay, this is Chris Murphy, a radical, imbecile Democrat, thinking that conservatives and people like him have a mutual agreement on populist economics. Any conservatives think that they have any agreement with Chris Murphy about anything economic at all? Probably not. And then once we are in that conversation, I've just got a much better chance of convincing them that biological girls playing in boys' sports is not the existential threat to America that the right makes you think it is. Oh, isn't that interesting that he phrased it that way? Don't you think, Morgan? That he phrased, oh, hey, biological girls playing in boys' sports is not an existential threat. Yeah, that's literally part of the argument. Isn't it weird how it's always the biological men who identify as girls? Boys, girls, men, women. And then the biological men dominate women's sports to the point of serious physical injury of the girls. And it never goes the other way. Like I said, this is a guy who disappears at 2:13, goes into the bathroom, comes out rubbing his nose, and then just throws some insanity onto the internet. This is what this guy does. But you got to be talking to people to confirm. And we've lived in this world in much we just think shaming people who disagree with us is eventually going to win the argument. Nobody's shaming anybody. That's the thing. Nobody is shaming anybody. This is, again, an idiot who is not wise enough to know he's an idiot. And every time he opens his mouth and the idiot just falls out of him, he doesn't realize it's falling out of him and he just keeps talking and more idiot just keeps coming out. Now, I don't know if this is an extra special form of stupidity that Chris Murphy has. I don't know if this is a byproduct of snorting too much fart through a martini glass up his nose. I don't really know. This is a form of delusional that frankly should warrant a psychological examination, like on automatic. Like the sergeant at arms should go over there, take him into custody, should force a test upon this guy, and if he fails it, he should be removed from office. This is just an extra special kind of insanity that I don't know at all. Now, on that side, like, I think he should totally try this. 100%. I think that Chris Murphy should try this. This is probably a guy, and I don't know for sure, but I have strong suspicions that Chris Murphy is probably a guy that avoids town halls, probably avoids going back to his state and having any serious open discussion with anybody unless they're donors or party members or anything like that. I'm willing to bet that he avoids that sort of stuff so that he doesn't have to deal with, the other side's very difficult questions that he's not capable of answering, like why he deliberately went in multiple directions here that are the opposite of reality and are, in fact, plot lines in Bizarro World. Got more coming up. You're tuned into The Burning Truth. Things that make you go, So we have the new transportation secretary, the one who's going to replace Pete Buttigieg, which some of you in this audience lived under the reign of as Mayor Pete. You endured the potholes. You endured the running out of salt 2 weeks into winter. You endured children dying because of roundabouts being put up without proper lighting in spite of the repeated warnings. You lived under the weird two-way thing. You lived under electric scooters introduced to the city for the first time in a blizzard. It is a true story. The first day the Lime scooters were unveiled in the city of South Bend, it was a blizzard. You endured the environmentalist Pete Buttigieg, not ever really caring that the electric scooters and the bicycles were thrown into the St. Joseph River. Never really cared much about that at all, did he? You endured him trying to move the train station back into the middle of downtown from the airport. Because he's the transportation. Oh my God. You endured a lot. Okay? You endured a lot. When Pete announced that he was going to run for president and he started doing the book tour and the local media was like, oh, please buy Pete Buttigieg's book. Because there was a big effort to make it a bestseller. He had to get to a certain number of copies and whatnot, and nobody was buying his book. So all of the local news media around the South Bend area decided to collectively get on their knees and put their heads down and get to work for old Pete Buttigieg. Make sure that you bought his book. So that way, when he launched his presidential campaign, it wouldn't be embarrassing. And then Politico came to town. Yes, that Politico. Politico came to town to get to know Mayor Pete. Now, what we didn't know at the time is that Mayor Pete has friends at Politico. And Politico launched his presidential campaign. And they launched it in one of the most interesting ways. Politico was in a car with Pete. Pete was driving. And true story, they hit a damn pothole. True story. By the way, America, you're welcome for the nickname Pothole Pete. We did that. That was us. So they hit a pothole while driving with Pete Buttigieg, ignored it, completely ignored it, even though it's a major issue in his tenure as mayor. Oh, yeah, unsmart streets, all of that stuff. There's so much that I left out. I'm sorry. But the Politico article that launched Pete Buttigieg's presidential campaign, after they hit the pothole, they went on a screed about how it appeared that Pete Buttigieg had a flashback to his deployment in Afghanistan because of that pothole. Pete Buttigieg never took fire in Afghanistan. Pete Buttigieg was never in combat in Afghanistan. Pete Buttigieg was not in danger in any real sensible way in Afghanistan. There are people who deployed with him who have very strong things to say. We have entertained a lot of that on the show over the years. But it was an interesting start to a presidential campaign to make it seem like Pete Buttigieg had PTSD because of a pothole that he was known for not fixing. Very strange. But Politico did that. But all the while, and we played you the, was it Mick Mullen? What is his name? It was Mulvaney. that senator who was saying, hey, how come you guys are scrutinizing all of Trump's cabinet picks here? You didn't scrutinize, the bald guy who stole everybody's luggage who didn't have any nuclear experience. You didn't scrutinize, Rachel Levine. You didn't scrutinize Pete Buttigieg at all. And then, bimbo lady lied and said, oh, we scrutinized all of them. No, you did not. Anybody criticize Rachel Levine? Or Sam, was it Britton or Binton, the guy who stole the luggage? The bald head? Guy who looks like gay Matt Damon? Anybody who criticized them, even pointing out Rachel Levine put sick people in long-term care facilities, but only after they pulled their mother out of the long-term care facility so they didn't get COVID, and that Sam Britton has zero nuclear experience and yet somehow is going to be involved with nuclear issues in the federal government. Anybody who criticized them were immediately labeled as transphobic. You weren't allowed to talk about their credentials. And I was the only one in the news media telling anybody about Pete Buttigieg's transportation history. I was the only one. There was nobody else. Not one time that I am aware did any major newspaper or news outlet do a deep dive into Pete Buttigieg's sex life when he was in his 20s. Do you remember that, Morgan? Do you remember anybody doing a deep dive into Pete Buttigieg's sex life when he was in his 20s? I don't remember the news media doing that. That's really strange. It's particularly strange because of, well, the things the community knows about his sex life from his 20s, but more importantly, the sex life of his now husband, Chasten. Oh, the stories we could tell about Chasten. Am I right? If the Daily Mail had come knocking and said, hey, do you know anything about who, how, and where Pete and Chasten were diddling other people in their 20s, that would be juicy stuff for us to put in the newspaper. Could you tell us? Bet there'd be more than one of you would have a little story, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you? So let me ask you this. One, it's not relevant. See, a bunch of you liberals right now go, it's not relevant. You're a homophobe. No. I'm just pointing out that it seems a little strange that somebody who's in government, that their sexual activity when they were in their 20s would be somehow relevant for an entire write-up in a newspaper. Especially when they're just the transportation secretary appointee. And yet, that's exactly what they're doing with Sean Duffy. Why did the Daily Mail write an entire thing about his hard-partying sex life in his 20s? As interesting as his sex life might have been in his 20s, ladies and gentlemen, it is way less interesting than Pete and Chasten. I assure you. But the Daily Mail never asked that question. Got more coming up. You're tuned into The Burning Truth.
The Burning Truth with Casey Hendrickson.
And good afternoon. Thank you for tuning in to The Burning Truth. I am your host, Casey Hendrickson. So I went ahead and got a text message. I don't know why I said went ahead. That doesn't make sense. I got a text message that my chiropractor, Dr. Don Warren, was going to be a part of something that deals with healing with light. And light technology, things like that is really coming on. Red light therapy, things of that nature, really coming on. And so I figured I looked at it, they sent me the video, and they're like, hey, could you tell people about it? I'm happy to tell people about it. The problem is I look at it and I'm like, I don't think I'm the guy for that. So here's Dr. Warren. Dr. Warren is the guy who's actually going to kind of explain all of this to us. But Dr. Warren, first of all, thank you for joining us. We do appreciate it. But so you've got this.
My pleasure. And thanks for having me on, Casey. It's a pleasure helping you all out. And I found out about this new technology about 8 weeks ago. I've known about photobiomodulation and red light therapy and laser therapy and how it works and how it can help heal the body. But the other big rage is stem cells, and everyone is out to figure out how can we boost stem cells, because as we age, they go down, and when they go down, we develop inflammation and pain, and things break down in our knees and hips and everything.
Yeah.
And so the cool thing about stem cells is that they are responsible, they are the building blocks for every single organ and tissue in our body. And if we can find a way, which this company has, to boost and activate those stem cells, it's what we want. And so we're going to be talking about tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. at the Mishawaka Library in the bigger room. It's called the Eisen Room. But we're bringing in a medical doctor from Grand Rapids. His name is Dr. Don Verhulst, and he'll be speaking on stem cells. He'll also be speaking on these new patches. They're about 1.5 inches wide. You put them on, and it has a GHK copper peptide, which resonates the light off your body, the heat waves off your body, and pushes it back in. They've got over 90 patented studies on this patch showing that it does activate stem cells, and it raises the GHK copper peptide. Anyone can look on PubMed and find the research behind it, but he'll be discussing in a more thorough format how that all happens and how it can help people. But there are all kinds of published testimonies as well as the research showing it does boost stem cells, and it is helping thousands and thousands of people all over the world.
Well, in peptide therapy, you got light therapy, obviously, and people are finally accepting of red light therapy. It took them a while, but they're finally starting to realize that red light therapy does actually work. It's become mainstream. But also kind of on the fringe of that is peptide therapy. And peptides they can be really good, they can be really bad, and they're kind of in a gray area. Ozempic is a peptide, by the way, folks. And so if it's used properly, it can be very effective. If it's abused, it can be abused to a very negative way. So
correct. And so it's like the GHK is a certain peptide made out of certain amino acids that they know stimulate healthy things and downregulate things that are bad. And the nice thing about these patches is they're non-transdermal, means they don't put anything into you. There's no medication. It's not putting in anything to you. It's just creating this photobiomodulation effect on the body, which helps heal the body.
Okay, so we don't have any drugs, no injections or anything like that.
Correct.
But what about side effects? Any side effects that people can expect if they start using this stuff? I know that the doctor is going to go over this more tomorrow night. And I should also mention, too, Dr. Warren, that there's no charge for this, correct? This is free? No, this is a free event, a free seminar. And I was just excited to be able to get this doctor. He's written 4 books. He is a medical doctor into more of natural medicine, natural things that help heal. Okay. And, like I was saying, the basics are it doesn't put anything into your body, no chemicals, no reactions, no side effects. The side effects are actually you feel more energy. 96% of people feel more energy. They sleep better, and they start to see things healing up that they've never seen healed for years and years. And we'll be sharing all kinds of stories as well as all the information on that tomorrow. And we're really just talking about a patch. That's what it is. Is there any other way of using this? Or? Yeah, and when I first was told about this, I thought, oh, this is crazy. There's no way. And then I talked with Dr. Verhulst up in Grand Rapids, and he led me to the research. And I've always said, hey, I trust God, but everybody else needs to bring data. I need to see the research. Right. And so he showed me the research, and I went, oh, my gosh, this is an incredible technology that's very affordable. It's not going to cost you $5,000 a knee. It's, about $5 a day. It's very affordable and just an incredible technology. Okay, so you're a part of, because they got a nurse there, you got the doctor, you're on that panel. I mean, what's your role, I guess, in the seminar for tomorrow?
I'll be speaking for a short time. Dr. Verhulst, the medical doctor, will be speaking 90% of the time.
Okay.
And then we'll all be there to answer questions afterwards. There's usually a lot of people wanting to have questions answered. And so Valerie, who's a registered nurse, will also be there helping to answer questions. I'll be there. And then Dr. Verhulst will be there.
And one of the things that it's mentioned, because you mentioned healing, like wounds, things like that. You mentioned inflammation, which is a problem for Americans in general because of the way that we tend to eat. Inflammation is a big problem for us. Pain, you mentioned that. But it says here, enhanced sports performance. What's some of the research say on that?
Well, that's the cool thing too. Is if anybody paid attention to the Mike Tyson fight, even though there are debates on whether that was all rigged, but he was wearing a patch. Robert Kennedy, who is in Trump's administration now, he wears the patch. I believe I heard Dr. Oz is wearing it. But there are many Olympic athletes that have used this. Many pros are using it. And they have another patch called the X49 that improves sports performance. So that's what a lot of the athletes are doing to just improve their duration and their amount of energy that they have while they're performing activity. And so those are things he'll be discussing. There's several other patches. The company really recommends in the beginning you stick with the two main patches, which are for inflammation and for stem cell activation. But they also have a glutathione patch, which is great for detoxification and inflammation. The other cool thing was the original patch that came out many, many years ago, developed by David Schmidt, the owner of the company, was made for the Navy SEALs. And it was designed because they're underwater for so long. I think I heard 36 to 48 hours sometimes. The Navy wanted something to help improve their performance while they were underwater. And so that was the beginnings of this company. Anyways, any other questions or?
Well, there's a peptide thing too. So it's like you got a patch instead of having to stick a needle in you, and that's kind of the downside with most peptide treatment is you got to stab yourself a little bit.
Right. And there's the peptide is just in the patch, and it basically is reflecting the energy waves coming off your body. We can measure those. Everybody's seen night vision goggles probably that the military uses, and they can see people in the dark and the heat signature coming off of them. This patch will take that heat signature, and then the GHK copper peptide inside the patch then resonates a new wavelength back into the body, and that is where we're getting the big effect.
And we're talking with Dr. Don Warren from Warren Chiropractic. And so how long have you been practicing?
For, 34 years now.
Okay.
So
one of the things that I say about your facility when I go in is that you use technology in there that other places don't have. And some people have jokingly over the years been like, come on, it's a chiropractor's office. What are you talking about? But you walk in there and it's like, you got a hyperbaric chamber. You've got the lasers that you use. You've got, these devices that are designed to decompress you and all. You have a bunch of equipment that you don't find in your run-of-the-mill chiropractic office where people get twisted into a pretzel and snap, crackled, and popped and everything else. Not that that isn't great. That feels wonderful.
We're more than just a snap, crackle, pop. So many people are looking for more, and they've tried this, they've tried that, and all these things. But I found that, hey, some people need the laser therapy that we have here. Some people need the decompression machine that we have. It's called the KDT decompression machine, the best one on the market. And then we also offer hyperbaric oxygen therapy. Many people are familiar. It helps with people who've had diving injuries where they go underwater. It's also been effective for wound healing in the hospitals. But they also know it helps with dementia, and it helps with Parkinson's and different neurologic disorders, and it helps with concussion repair. And there are so many athletes out there who have had concussion injuries and are looking for options. And this has dramatically shown all kinds of research, published research on improving people's brain activity after a concussion.
I guess my main point, Dr. Warren, was that, you've been doing this a long time. You've embraced new technologies. I'm sure you've probably seen your fair share of, I'll just call it snake oil, that has probably come across and made a lot of promises. And things of that. You and I have had those conversations over the years, just, in private, of like, I went to the seminar. It was nothing. It wasn't real. Then I went to another one. Like, I'm really excited about adding this to the practice. But this is one of those things that you're excited about, and are you going to be offering this at your facility?
Yeah, we are. So we do offer at our facility. We show people how they can, get it at a great discount and try to save them some money too through us. And at closer to a wholesale, our goal is to help people, but also help them get it at the best price possible.
Okay.
And
well,
so
the goal is always,
we'll be discussing all that. Yeah.
The goal is always to heal without drugs and surgery, right? That's always your
absolutely,
okay.
Absolutely.
So,
and a lot of our society, we've seen a huge shift, especially since COVID, where people want natural solutions. They're tired of being poked and prodded with drugs and other mechanisms, and if they can avoid surgery, they want to avoid surgery. And so everything we do is, hey, can we find something that, number one, is effective, and that it's also cost effective. And with this patch, at first when Val is the person that actually taught me about it. I blew her off for 4 or 6 weeks before I looked into it because I thought it was just snake oil.
Right.
But as I read some research, I started going, oh my gosh, this is for real. And I realized there was some research. Then I talked to Dr. Verhulst up in Grand Rapids by phone, and became even more confident in it. And so I have been moving straight ahead with it, and we've seen good results with many patients already, and look forward to helping more people with this.
Well, that's certainly interesting, but if nothing else, if anybody out there still has doubts, that's why the seminar is tomorrow. So this is going to be at the Mishawaka Penn Harris Public Library downtown. It's the Eisen Room, 209 Lincoln Way East in Mishawaka, Indiana. It starts at 6 p.m., no charge. So this is tomorrow, 6 p.m., no charge. I will post this to social media. I'll also put it in the Daily Show Prep if anybody wants to find it, which, of course, you guys can get at btmedia.news. But pretty interesting stuff. I look forward to hearing a little bit more about it.
The meeting should be less than an hour, I'm predicting. And then we always leave room for questions and answers and all that stuff. All right.
Very good. Dr. Warren, we do appreciate your time this afternoon. Thank you very much.
All right. Have a great evening.
All right.
Bye-bye.
You too. Take care. Yeah, I took a look at it. He sent me this video, watched it, and I'm looking at it. And I'm like, okay, I can tell you all about it in a quick little thing, but I honestly don't know enough about it to even be able to explain it. So I'm like, you know what? Can you just come on the show? So he came on and explained it to me and all of you. But this is interesting. So tomorrow, so this is in Mishawaka, or for those of you around Mishawaka, 6 p.m. At 209 Lincoln Way East. This is the Mishawaka Penn Harris Public Library in downtown. But it starts at 6 p.m. Should be about an hour or so, totally free of charge. You can learn more. Especially those of you who might be professionals and interested in this, certainly would be something that you might be interested in if it can help your patients. All right, folks, we got more coming up. You're tuned in to The Burning Truth. Well. Tell me if this doesn't sound familiar. General Motors is delaying the Indiana electric vehicle battery factory. Does that sound familiar?
I swear we've already covered that.
Remember when I said that they were going to do a slowdown last year, and then they did?
Yeah.
Remember a certain Republican local politician said that I was lying about that?
I remember that.
Certain local Republican politician who seems to get in physical altercations everywhere he goes?
Yeah.
Yeah. You know what it's like? It's like I have people there and they feed me information or something. It's weird. It's very strange. It's almost as if, according to the Associated Press, production at an electric vehicle battery plant jointly run by General Motors and Samsung SDI has been delayed as EV sales have slowed in the United States. I really feel like I've heard that before, Morgan. The companies finalized their agreement on Tuesday. That's a while ago to jointly run the new factory in New Carlisle, but they're not going to do any production until 2027 if the market allows for it. So now the good thing about this particular plant is that it's modular, so they can do other stuff with it. Samsung SDI they've got their own products and everything else, so they're going to be able to do their own stuff with it. But just friendly reminder. Hey, Michigan has spent $1 billion on electric vehicle battery plants. Guess how many jobs it's created? If you said 200, you'd be correct. That's a lot of millions of dollars per job there, Morgan. Way to go, Michigan. Bravo. Braun's transition team posted on X today that we're going to continue the success of the Holcomb administration in job creation. Like, okay, you going to sell us out to China too, like they did? Have a great night, folks. We'll see you tomorrow.
Podcasts by Federated Media.